Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about In Your House on the PS1. In Your House is kind of a spiritual successor to WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game. So a lot of this is going to be pretty much a rehash of that. The gameplay is in many ways better, and then I'll talk about the graphics later because I've got some issues with that. What is kind of cool about this is you can play with up to 4 players, assuming that you can find a multi-tap for the PS1 and you have 3 friends who really want to come over and play 25-year-old video games. I did not have that luxury, but hey, maybe you've got some friends who enjoy doing that more than mine do. The game plays an awful lot like a fighting game, and it isn't surprising because it shares a lot of similarities with Mortal Kombat and also, WWF WrestleMania. The matches are all kind of structured that way too, as they're all kind of 2 out of 3 falls. All you really have to do in this is beat down your opponent. There are no submission moves in this, so you don't have to worry about that. You can get counted out, but that's really hard to do. And when you need to pin your opponent, you just kind of automatically snap onto them for the pin. So that was kind of interesting. In this, you can play a season mode, which is just 10 matches. You can try to get the Intercontinental title, which is similar to how WWF WrestleMania was. You fight one opponent 5 times, then 2 opponents 4 times, and then you have one match where you face 3 opponents at the same time. The WWF Heavyweight Championship, that's going to be structured similarly. Wow, okay. Stumbling over my words right now, I'm sorry. But in that mode, you fight 2 opponents 5 times, 3 opponents 4 times, and 10 opponents once. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. When you do face 10 opponents, you just face them in like groups of 3s until all of the wrestlers on the roster are gone. I do want to say this was the most confusing frickin' thing to read when I was going through the list of what you had to do. Whoever wrote this manual, they're a dick. There are also 2-player and 3-player modes, as well as a 4-player mode. Those are all really centered around tag team matches or player versus player. While I like that there are more modes to play in this game, I kind of wish this was done a little bit differently. I didn't really want to fight a bunch of gauntlet matches with really no payoff, but that's just kind of the style that this game was. It was meant to be really an arcade game, or it was trying to emulate that. There are 9 wrestlers in this game, which kind of sucks, and we are limited to really the WWF roster of this time, which wasn't really the best. And sadly, there's no Savio Vega in this game. I would have liked to have Savio Vega in here, but it just wasn't in the cards. What we have is Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Triple H before he became Triple H, Ahmed Johnson, Shawn Michaels, The Ultimate Warrior, The Undertaker, and Vader. Overall, the gameplay's pretty good. I like the gameplay for the arcade game, and I like the gameplay here. It's over the top, fun, and just kind of goofy at times. I just realized I didn't mention Gold Dust with the roster. That was kind of stupid of me. So, with this game, I wanted to show this here. This is the opening cutscene, and this is really the best part about this game from a visual standpoint. It kind of goes downhill from here, so if you were expecting something closer to what WWF the arcade game looked like, especially on the PlayStation, you're gonna be kind of disappointed. I do like that they use digitized sprites, but man, they don't look as good in this game as they did with the WrestleMania game. This game kind of ditches the crowd and makes it look more like a clone of Mortal Kombat or other fighting games from this period. Each wrestler has like their own themed background that they have. So it's like going to a bunch of different stages, like in Mortal Kombat, which I don't know how I really feel about it. I liked that there was a crowd. I liked that there was a crowd in WrestleMania, the arcade game, even if it did get a little repetitive. Here, it just feels like a fighting game with some odd branding done to it. I'm really not totally sure how I feel about it, which seems a little strange. There's just a lot more in here that I would expect from a fighting game than I would from a pro wrestling game. It doesn't look bad. The backgrounds all look pretty good, but the ring just kind of feels out of place at times in this. Even if they do certain things to kind of make it fit into where you're fighting, it's just kind of weird. The animations and moves all look good. I really love that everybody has their own special moves. They kind of have their own cartoonish attacks. They throw in some kind of fun stuff for you when you're fighting people. Like you'll hit them and something will fly out, like broken hearts or something along those lines. It looks pretty cool, and it really looks like just an over-the-top version of the WWF or a watered-down version of Mortal Kombat. And I'm sorry that I keep bringing that game up, but it really is the most apt comparison I have for this. I like the graphics overall, but I think they look worse than WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, and the backgrounds just kind of feel strange to me. Aside from that, everything looks good, and it's kind of what you would expect from a game on the PS1, and it looks better than a lot of other fighting games that tried to use digitized sprites but just kind of sucked at it. These are well detailed, they look okay, but they don't look as good as they did on the arcade port. It's a very weird thing. This was a really fun game to play. I hadn't heard of In Your House before I picked this one up, and I'm kind of glad that I came into it without any sort of preconceived notions about it. It's a pretty fun game to play, but it isn't anything really amazing. It's just kind of an average experience. In some ways, it improves on some things that WWF WrestleMania the arcade game did, but from a visual standpoint, I don't like it as much. I think they kind of leaned into the over-the-top stuff a little bit too much. However, it does have a few more game modes than just the gauntlet matches, but a lot of those are kind of locked away between in a multiplayer stuff, so you are still doing just mostly gauntlet matches if you're trying to do this on a single player mode. All the characters are pretty cool. I liked this period of pro wrestling, even though others don't look back on it as well, and there were a lot of issues, but there were issues with a lot of pro wrestling back then. I wish some of the characters had made it in here. Like I mentioned, Savio Vega, I wish he had gotten in here. God, I wish they had brought in, because they are going for like a more over-the-top stuff, I wish they had brought in like Isaac Yankem. I think they had Diesel and Razor Ramon still, or they could have just really flipped the middle finger at Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and literally brought in fake Razor and fake Diesel and called them that in the game. I thought that would have been pretty funny, but whatever. It is still a fun game, even if I don't like it as much as WrestleMania the arcade game. I had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, it's a pretty decent game for what it is. So that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.